You are struggling to make ends meet. You have said that. Someone you love has said that. It shows up in job loss posts, daily headlines, at the gas pump, and probably your family group text at some point in the last year. It is one of the most used phrases in the English language, and nobody has any idea what the ends are. Meet the ends of what, exactly? What ends? Where are they? What happens if they do not meet? Are they close? Are they far apart? Is there a gap? Nobody knows. You just absorbed the phrase, understood it meant money was tight, and moved on with your life. So let us go find the ends, because this one goes back further than you think. Way further. And the journey involves a French accountant, a shipwrecked rope, a belt that does not fit, and a sausage. Yes, a sausage. The earliest solid record in English comes from 1661. A writer named Thomas Fuller, in a book called The History of the Worthies of England, writes about a man who cared nothing for wealth and desired only to make both ends meet. Notice it was both ends, not just ends, both ends. The original phrase had the word both in it, which is already more specific, and also raises more questions. Both ends of what, Thomas? You wrote it down. You had one job. But here is the thing. Fuller was not inventing the phrase. He was using it casually, like it was already common. Which means by 1661, this thing was already old enough that nobody needed to explain it. It had been floating around long enough to become invisible. And we can push it back even further. In 1639, a man named John Clark translated a French phrase into English. The French phrase was joindre les deux bouts, which means to join the two ends. And the French used it to mean exactly what we mean today: scraping by, managing just enough, not going under. So the idea behind make ends meet was already alive in France before it had fully landed in English. We borrowed the concept and eventually lost the both, which is very on brand for English. Take something from another language, sand off the edges, and act like it was ours all along. So we know when it appeared. We know where it probably came from. What we do not know is what the ends actually are. And this is where it gets chaotic, because there are 4 completely different theories. They all make a certain kind of sense, and historians cannot fully agree on any of them. Theory 1. Bookkeeping. This is the most straightforward explanation, and therefore the least fun. In old-fashioned accounting, you would list your income in one column and your expenses in another. At the bottom of each column, you wrote the total. The end of the income column had to meet, meaning equal, the end of the expense column. If they met, you were fine. If they did not meet, you had a gap. You were spending more than you earned. You were failing to make ends meet. Clean, logical, boring, probably partially correct. Theory 2. Sailing ships. This one has some swagger. On large sailing vessels, the rigging was an enormous network of ropes holding the masts and sails in place. When a rope frayed or snapped, you could not just leave a gap. A gap in the rigging meant a sail that did not work and a ship that did not move. So sailors would splice the 2 broken ends of rope back together. They would make the ends meet. The ship could function. Crisis averted. The phrase, in this version, means doing just enough to keep things from falling apart, which is, honestly, a more vivid and accurate description of living paycheck to paycheck than any accounting column. Theory 3. Tailoring and cloth. In the 1600s, fabric was expensive. Genuinely, shockingly expensive relative to what people earned. When you were making a garment, you cut your cloth carefully, because if you misjudged, you would not have enough to finish. The 2 ends of the fabric had to reach each other and join. If they met, you had a garment. If they did not, you had a very awkward situation, and possibly a cold winter. This theory also connects to another Old English phrase, cut your cloth according to your coat, meaning do not spend more than you have. Same world, same logic, same desperate relationship with fabric. Theory 4. The belt. This one is almost too poetic to dismiss. The idea is simple. If you are eating less because you cannot afford food, you lose weight. If you lose weight, your belt gets looser. And a looser belt means the two ends of the belt can reach each other and meet. Making ends meet in this version is literally about a belt fitting around a thinner body because times are hard. That one hurts a little, which means it probably resonated. If you are finding this as wacky as we are, hit the like button. It helps more people find videos like this one. Now, the sausage. There is a theory, passed around online and occasionally repeated with total confidence, that make ends meet actually started as make ends meat, as in sausage meat. The story goes that butchers, when filling sausage casings, would stuff cheap filler into one end and real meat into the other. Making ends meet meant connecting the two halves, a full casing, a deceptive product. Medieval charcuterie fraud as the origin of a financial idiom. This theory is wrong. Not controversial, not unproven. Wrong. The Oxford English Dictionary traces the phrase clearly to financial and physical meanings that predate sausage production methods that would make this story possible. The word in the phrase has always been meat, as in equal or match, not meat, as in food. The confusion comes from the fact that meat and meat sound identical, and the sausage version makes for a better story at dinner parties. But it is folk etymology. Dramatic, spreadable, wrong. You already know the pattern. So here is what actually holds up. The phrase almost certainly arrived in English from French, where joining the two ends was already a way of describing financial survival. It appeared in English by the early 1600s and was clearly established by 1661. The ends in question are most likely either the two totals in a ledger that need to balance, or the two ends of a rope that need to splice, or possibly the two ends of a piece of cloth that need to connect. Maybe all three. Maybe the phrase collected meaning from all of these physical realities at once because they all describe the same feeling, having just enough and not a scrap more. Tobias Smollett, the Scottish novelist, gave us one of the most vivid early uses in 1748 in Roderick Random, describing a schoolmaster so poor he had to sell liquor out of his home just to make the two ends of the year meet. A man with a day job and a side hustle, barely holding it together, hoping his income column and his expense column would line up before January came around. That schoolmaster would recognize your life. That is the strange, quiet truth about make ends meet. It has described the same anxiety across 4 centuries. Numbers change, the stakes change. The sausage theory keeps coming back around. But the feeling does not change at all. One human hoping that what comes in will be enough to cover what goes out, that the rope will hold, that the cloth will reach, that the belt will fit, that the ends will meet. If you want more videos about the completely unhinged history hiding inside the words you use every day, subscribe. There is a lot more where this came from. Now, go balance something.